Hi, I'm Ruthie and this is Brick Girl Studios. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to show you how I shot and edited this. So for this shot, you will need 2 lights, 1 lighting modifier, a couple of curtains and a glass filled with whatever you like. A drink, dessert, whatever you fancy. Let's go. Here we are in the studio. We have a table with a cloth on it and our subject. The camera is pointing directly at it. Behind the subject, we have some curtains on a seamless stand. And our first light, our key light, is right above the subject and it has a gridded beauty dish on it. That's so we get a nice beam of light coming down and illuminating the top of the subject, but the grid helps the light from spilling all over the place. Now our fill light is a bare bulb flash that I'm pointing directly at the wall, so when it hits the wall, it will spill across the whole scene and then it will hit that white card. And that white card will just bounce some light back into the front of the subject. If you don't have a beauty dish, you could use a gridded reflector, standard reflector, and if you don't have a white wall next to you, just use any kind of softbox to create soft light spilling across the scene. And here is our first shot directly out of camera. I haven't edited this at all. This dessert does require cream though, so now that I have that shot, which will become important later, I'm going to add in the cream and take another shot. And let's see what we get with this. If you're wondering what this is, by the way, this is an Eton mess. It's a British dessert involving cream, meringues and strawberries. Delicious. However, my beef with this photo at the moment is that I feel like it just needs a little more on top. So maybe let's cut up some strawberries and add a few more strawberries and meringues as a garnish. You may be thinking at this point, Ruthie, why didn't you just make the dessert the way you wanted it to look? Why are you doing it in stages? But that's sort of the point of food and drink photography and product even. You kind of build it from the ground up and shoot as you go along. Because sometimes you feel like, you've nailed it on the day. And then when you look back, you think, whoa, I went way too far with that. So as long as you've got photos along the route, you can go back, you can show several to the client. This is art, this is creativity. There's no one right way to shoot an Eton mess on a table. It's all subjective. So take several shots and see how you feel tomorrow. For example, I've added in some strawberries now and let's take a look. Yikes, what the hell? It needs work. So let's go back to the drawing board and see what we can do about modifying that angry looking strawberry. There we go. Let's take a look at this one now and see what we've got here. Okay, this looks much better. Though I wonder whether we might just add a little extra piece of meringue, just so it's clear that this isn't an ice cream with strawberries on top and this is in fact an Eton mess. Okay, let's try this and see what we feel about this one. Yes, nice. Okay, I'm happy with that. I think we might be ready to edit. So I've opened up our file in Photoshop and I've done some work on it. That's the after. And let's look at the before again and after. So that's the finished edit and I'm going to show you how I got there. So the first thing I want to do is not that. The first thing I want to do is to duplicate the layer. And I did this by pressing Command J or Control J on the keyboard. And I'm just pausing the video here slightly to mention why I always duplicate the layer. It's the first thing I do when I get into Photoshop. And that's because you always want a copy of the original image. So that if you do anything destructive on the layer above, you have the original and you can go back to it. It's like your birth certificate, right? Just don't keep your birth certificate. Get copies done, right? Anything could happen. So always duplicate the layer as soon as you open Photoshop. It will save you so much hassle in the future. Okay, plug over. Now we're going to add an adjustment layer and it's going to be curves, everyone's favorite. So what I want to do is work in the highlights section, which is here. That's the shadows down there. So I'm going to bring up the highlights like this. And you can see on the image, it is bringing back some of those dark shadows that were in the curtains and making them pop a bit. However, it has done this to the whole image, which we don't want. So we're going to use a layer mask. If the layer mask is white, like it is now, everything can be seen. But if it's black, and you can do this by pressing Command I, Control I, everything is hidden, and then we can reveal the work we just did. So take a brush, make sure the foreground color is white, because white reveals and black conceals. And then we're going to brush those highlights that we created with the curves layer into the areas of the photo that we want. So the fold of the curtain where the highlights occur naturally, I'm going to make those pop a bit by brushing them into the photo. And I'm doing this fairly crudely just to show you, but obviously take your time and make it look snazzy. So there we are. You can see now, we might want to reduce the opacity a bit because it's a little bit hot. Yeah, that, I think 80, that seems about right. But I still feel like these shadows are just really dark. So I'm going to add another curves adjustment layer. And this time I'm going to work in the shadow portion. And I'm just going to bring up those shadows to bring back a little more of that detail. I think that looks good. Now we're going to invert the layer mask. Command I, Control I. We're going to take our brush, which should be white to reveal the work that we just did. And then we're going to brush that into some of those darker areas. And again, please take more time than I am. I'm just trying to show you for a YouTube tutorial, but you get the gist. Okay, that's looking good. Let's maybe bring down the opacity, maybe about, 49, 50%. So that's before and that's after. Let's maybe bring down those shadows just a touch more. Yeah, nice. Okay, so in this dessert, I'm seeing that the cream has kind of settled and it kind of looks a bit like a milkshake in parts, which is not what I want. But fortunately, I took photos along the way as we were building this. So I'm going to bring in one of the photos I shot earlier that had no cream in it. So we're going to go over to this layer here. And here's a photo without any cream. So what we're going to do is we're going to right click, we're going to find duplicate layer. We're going to send it to our document that we're working on, click OK. And then if we go back into the photo we were working on previously, we'll see it's in there. There it is. It's landed on top of all of those layers. We can switch it on and off. There it is. But we don't want it to hide everything. We just want to reveal a little part of it. So what are we going to do? You guessed it, kids, layer mask. The layer mask's white, so we better invert it, Command I. And then we can just reveal the little parts that we want to reveal. So I'm going to take my brush, which is white to reveal, and I'm going to paint in the parts that I want to show through to the image. So I think like we want this strawberry in here, but we want to make sure we can still see some of the cream. So let's get rid of that, and let's get rid of that part there. But that's nice. Now we have a little bit more of the strawberry and the meringue showing through, so it looks a bit more like a dessert than a milkshake. Beautiful. Still with me, guys? Okay, let's add a new layer. And then let's go to Edit. We're going to fill that layer. And we're going to fill it with 50% grey. The mode is normal, opacity is 100%, that's fine. Okay. Everything's grey. Don't worry. Go to your layer styles and go to Overlay, right? We're back to where we were. And then we're going to go over to this icon and find the Dodge tool. And we're going to keep it at midtones, keep the exposure around 3%. And we're going to paint over the highlighted areas that we want to pop. So Dodge makes things brighter, Burn makes things darker. So we're just going to paint over the edges of the strawberries where the highlights are and some of those darker areas within the glass that I just want to come out a little bit more. So if we turn the layer on and off, we can see there's just a slight little pop of brightness in the areas that we painted. Nice. However, I'm noticing something here that I don't like. These were not the freshest strawberries in the world, so I feel like there might be a little bit of mold there. Not to fear. Let's go back to our layer, not the original, but the one above it, the copy. And we're going to take the patch tool over here, and we're going to just cut around this little area and drag it to the side just to clone it out. Let's see what we get here. Yep, not my best work. Let's do a few more. Yep. There we go. Just get rid of that little blemish. And while we're doing this, maybe we can just see if there's anything else. Yeah, that's good. One more. Okay. Let's just have a little look around here, like this strawberry at the top. Maybe that little guy could go. Just going to patch that out. Any others? Yeah, maybe this one here. This is just general cleanup, and usually I would start with this, but because this is a very messy dessert, like we have all these little guys here, I mean, I could go through and get rid of every one of those, but I actually feel that the particles of dust made by the meringue are part of the scene. So I don't want to go too crazy on the retouching, but if it was something that wasn't messy, you may have to do that. This is the penultimate adjustment layer. I promise we're nearly done. So I'm feeling like this green at the background is a little too olive, and I think I'd like it a bit more green than yellow. So I'm going to go down to selective color. I'm going to go into the yellows because that's how those greens show up for some reason. And I'm just going to make it a little more cyan, which is kind of blue. Yeah, somewhere around there. And then maybe, oh, let's just bring that to the top so it's affecting everything. And then let's maybe take some of the magenta out of that and make it more green. Yeah, there we go. Okay, that's pretty wild. Maybe we'll reduce the opacity on that a bit so it's not quite so neon. Yeah, so it's gone from that browny green to a more true green. Yeah, I really like the look of that. Final adjustment layer. So we're going to do one final curves layer, and we're just going to bring up the sort of general brightness of the photo with this by moving it from the midpoint. We're going to invert the layer, Command I, and then using the brush tool, make sure the foreground color is white. You can press X on your keyboard to toggle between those. And then I'm going to reduce the flow of the brush, and I just want to paint in a little bit more light into the front of this image so you can really see the details of the strawberries, the cream and meringue. And again, let's just reduce the opacity about halfway so it's not insane. But there you can see it's really brightened up what's in the glass. And I think that is it. That's my finished image. So let me know what you think of this. If you need any more help, if I went too quickly or too slowly, let me know. And I'd love to see some of your work. Feel free to email it to me, and keep on snapping. Have a good day.